Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. AM 630.
I don't know what story makes me want to bang my head against the wall more, the Herman Cain saga or the debt crisis with Greece that just doesn't ever want to go away.
Greece is the word right now.
Stuart Varney, host of Varney Company on the Fox Business Network. You can check him out 9:20 this morning, joins us now. So, every time we think this thing, we've kind of got a conclusion to it. Up comes another story. This time, the Prime Minister of Greece, George Papandreou, says, you know what, we're going to hold a referendum on this before we agree to all of this. And the word is that the referendum may come in December, early December, but then again, the whole government could collapse by then. What is the latest on the Greece saga?
Brian, this thing is happening right now. Dow Jones is reporting that Prime Minister Papandreou is about to resign.
Oh, boy.
We found out about 90 minutes ago that he's lost his majority in Parliament. There's been a revolt of some of his own party. So he's going to resign. But it looks like he's going to resign. Therefore, there's either going to be a snap election or there's going to be a government of national unity. Therefore, there's going to be an attempt to renegotiate that big debt deal that everybody was so happy about last week. Therefore, Europe remains in absolute chaos. And in fact, it's getting worse.
And therefore, bad day on the Dow.
No. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the futures, and they're pointing 50, 60 points higher.
Why is that?
Brian, if I could explain that, I'd be a rich guy. And I cannot explain it. That's the truth. I cannot explain it.
I bet that changes quickly.
I'll give you one partial explanation. Ben Bernanke said yesterday that the outlook for the economy is grim, the outlook for unemployment is grim, so everybody says, okay, so he'll print some more money. And Wall Street loves that, so it's rallying despite the European chaos. How's that?
Well, I thought Bernanke made it clear that he wasn't going to tamper in the near future, at least, no?
Well, the traders say, okay, in the near future, he's not going to tamper. Okay, he's not going to do that. But he's laying the groundwork.
Right.
This is what people believe, laying the groundwork for some dramatic action fairly soon. And that's what Wall Street likes to hear.
Is it possible with Papandreou out now in Greece that therefore there will be a deal in place sooner now, because otherwise we'd have to wait for that referendum, and that could have been more than a month or so in the future?
That's an outside possibility. He's not out yet. We just have a report that he's going to be out very soon. So the idea that you might still get a deal in place fairly quickly, I'm not sure about that, because I don't think the Greek people want the deal that's been pushed on them. I think they'll want to renegotiate that deal, and the Europeans have said, no, we're not going to do that. Maybe the rest of Europe would say, okay, please, can we get some kind of a deal, and might compromise, maybe. But this is just such a chaotic, fluid situation that it's very hard to get your hands around this thing.
Can you explain what would happen if Greece doesn't take the deal? What's going to happen? That country is going to go down, and go down hard, as the late Al Davis used to say.
If they don't take the deal, they crash. I mean, they crash and burn. You think it's painful for them now? Just wait until they reject the deal and leave the euro zone. Because at that point, the government has absolutely no money, and it cannot pay the vast government workforce. You slide right into a depression, and anybody who's got a single euro takes it out of Greece. You've got called capital flight. That amounts to a crash of Greece. Now, that will be a lot of short-term pain. You've got to measure the short-term catastrophe versus decades of austerity and pain. That's the choice that the Greek people are facing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't choose to go with short-term pain, crash and burn, because they would be back in control of their own currency. The drachma would make a return.
So Obama is in Europe right now for the G20. He's not a man renowned for dealing well with fluid and chaotic situations, but should we be having some influence here, or should we keep our noses out of it for the most part? Does he have a role there?
A country with a $14.7, $14.8 trillion debt and a $1 trillion per year deficit is in no position to either offer financial advice or money. He can do neither. He is, in fact, powerless to change the situation in Europe. And in fact, when he delivered some advice via Treasury Secretary Geithner a couple of weeks ago, it was resented What are you doing poking your nose into our affair? This whole problem was yours to begin with
And
back in 2008.
This is what concerns me about our situation. I think we are poised to become Greece if we don't make some significant changes right now. I mean, in Greece, they got into this bind because they spent a lot more for government services than they had income to support. And we're headed that same way. We just keep making the same mistakes that we see the Greeks make. And if we don't get our situation under control, there but for the grace of God go us.
I agree with you 100%, Brian. The Europeans have gone further down the road. They are much closer to the edge of the cliff than we are, but we're both, Europe and America, both driving down exactly the same road.
Exactly.
Spending way too much, we're creating debt that is not going to be repaid, and no sign of a plan to how to rein it in and act rationally in the future. Same problem.
Well, let me ask you, would it be better for Greece if they were in control and they had their own currency at this point? I mean, long term.
In my opinion, yes. That's a pretty harsh opinion to express. But if they go along with this deal and they just bumble along with unpayable debt, massive austerity program for years and years and years, and they're not in control of it because they're using somebody else's currency, that's not a very pretty picture to be painting to this young generation that's going out front. I mean, it's just misery for a decade. Contrast that with a sudden, huge crash and burn, with enormous pain short term, but the chance to get yourself back on your feet with your own currency, which you can devalue constantly to keep your products and your exports competitive and keep the tourists flowing in, because Greece suddenly becomes incredibly cheap. I'd rather take the latter. If I were Greek, frankly, I would take the latter. I'd do it.
Yeah, but you're asking people to vote for pain.
Yes.
And that's not a good scenario. Well, Stuart, it's always good to have you. Thanks for joining us on the Morning Majority. It's always great to have you.
My pleasure.